I'd like to hear from Wilhelm, from your perspective, your first interview at Phillips Corporation. Can you walk us through that?
I'm not sure that I understood the question properly. Are you referring to the interview today, or are you referring to the interview in, let's say, 1960?
1960.
1960. The interview was actually fairly informal because of the fact that we knew each other for a number of years, and I knew what Albert was trying to do, and Albert knew what I could contribute to the growth of the company. So again, it was quite informal, a discussion of the possibilities that stood before us and how we could together make it work. And after that, we didn't have much doubts as to where we were going to go.
So, Albert, from your perspective, you're obviously set in wanting Wilhelm on your team.
Well, I think you have to go back a little bit further than that. Wilhelm came to this country about 1954 with a wife and a young son. Came to, they had relatives in Washington. They came here without a job. And at that time, I did the personnel work at our company, and I got this phone call from a sister company of our boss, and he said he had this person who came from Germany and needs a job. At that time, as he mentioned, we were at 1805 Wisconsin Avenue, which is up in the northwestern part of Washington, and his family was somewhere down in southeast, as I recall. And I called him and asked him if he would come for an interview. He came, and I chatted with him, and I really didn't have a job, but I was so impressed, I said, well, you know, we can probably use him in a warehouse. And I said, would you be willing to work in the warehouse for $45 a week? He said, I'll take the job. But what I didn't know is he needed the money badly because he didn't have enough money to come by taxi or public transportation that 4 or 5 miles from where he was. He walked that distance to come to the office for the interview. And I thought, this guy's special.
So you started in the warehouse, Wilhelm. Where did you go from there?
Well, in the warehouse, I did acquire considerable knowledge about the supplies that we were offering our customers. And from there, I went into the office and took what we called then an inside sales position. Not much later, I took the position of purchasing, or the job of doing the purchasing for the company. And with that, I stayed for quite a while. Manning both inside sales partially and purchasing. And I think that's where I was when we made the change and started Phillips Machinery and Supply Company, as Albert mentioned earlier, under the motto, Partners in Industry. And we really meant it. We wanted to be partners with our industrial customers and make them successful as we became successful.
So Albert, you saw this guy walk 5 miles a day just for an interview. You knew something was special about him. Did you know you were going to start Phillips Corporation with him, or what
oh, heavens, no, I had no idea. I only decided that we had to make a change because I wasn't making any progress in the company I was working. I figured I was contributing a lot and not being recognized, and I became very unhappy. And I didn't know that I was unhappy because the guy wasn't treating me fairly or because I didn't function well in that atmosphere. And I thought, well, you know, if I leave here and go to work for somebody else and it's my fault, will I have the same disenchantment? And that's when I decided that I had to go in a different direction.
Did your unhappiness there, is that part of the reason you have always treated the employees here the way you do?
I'm sure that had some effect on it. I think that one of the things that I avoided was a lot of the mistakes that I felt that the guy made. And the best way to learn in growing in any way is to recognize somebody else's mistakes and not repeat them. And I did my damnedest not to repeat his mistakes.
Wilhelm, from your perspective, did you have the same unhappiness at that old job?
To a lesser degree, yes. I also had come to the conclusion that it would probably take a long time before I would make some serious progress in that company, or I would have to leave and go somewhere else and find a job. So when Albert came with the idea of starting Phillips Machinery and Supply, I was really ready for that. Even though I wanted to get some idea as to where Albert was going to take this, but I was ready for it.
Has he taken it to where he wanted to, from your perspective, Wilhelm?
I think so, yes. I think Albert provided the leadership to really make a successful company through education and through growth. And again, I must say, the kind of education that we provided in Phillips Machinery and Supply Company was much more informal than what is taking place today. But nevertheless, it was part of our development. And as Albert does, I marvel at the direction that the company is taking now, where I suspect that most of it is the result of Alan investing a lot of his time in educating himself and then educating other people within Phillips Corporation.
Albert, from your perspective, has the company gone in the direction you wanted it to? I mean, number one, number two employees right here, starting the whole thing. If you reflect back on the last 50 years, how do you feel about where the company is headed? Is it where you wanted them to go? Could you ever even imagine that they've taken it to where it is now, or that Alan's taken it to where it is now?
Well, you know, reflecting back to 1961, it's very difficult to me to envision what would this place be like in 2008. If you ask 10 years later, or maybe 20 years later, you could see the evolution taking place. But to try to visualize it, it was impossible. As I told you, the gratification to see this happening is just overwhelming.
What about the fact that the two of you are sitting there together almost 50 years later, still friends, partners? What's that like?
Well, it's an unexpected benefit, but I might might elaborate on the word unexpected. We always expected good partnership and good relations among each other and among our other employees. So we did not only start with the idea of partners in industry as far as our customers were concerned. It became later on a extension as far as our employees were concerned, in as much as we now call them partners.
But I think the important thing, as far as I'm concerned, is we respected them, we enjoyed their company, and it was just a pleasure to be with them. And I never expected to ever have any problem, because we would never do anything to harm that relationship.
Yeah, I think that was good. Showed up right on. It was great.
Did it?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, take it.